So the world is in a race against time. That's what we hear this morning. That's what this image is actually displaying. And you may all recall that 10 years ago, at the time the iPhone was launched, Al Gore, in The Inconvenient Truth, essentially displayed an amazing chart. He was showing how, from the end of the Second World War, the exponential growth of the populations, mixed together with the climate change, could become the main challenges of the year, actually of the 21st century. But the truth of the matter is, when I quit Apple 5 years ago, I joined an amazing university called Singularity. They all talk about transhumanism. And one of the charts which really took my attention was this one. You see on that chart an amazing growth, accelerations, exponential accelerations of innovations of all technologies. Over the last years, you and I, as a generations, were being able to have access to the PC, to the DNA discovery, to the internet, and just essentially 10 years ago, to the smartphone. The smartphone is really something which is now entering in all of your life. I'm not going to ask, as Jürgen did, how many of you do have an iPhone, actually a smartphone, but I'm sure many of you do have this. Now, that smartphone was essentially re-put to life on the 9th of January 2007 by Steve Jobs with a completely new design. And what I want to do today is essentially try to answer about what if the smartphone, the iPhone, would not have been launched in 2007. If it would not have been launched, essentially you will not have an amazing device which brings three things in one. The Walkman of the 21st century, the iPod, the ability to listen to music, an amazing new phone, and also an internet communicator. 3 in 1. I repeat, you get it as he said. Essentially, an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. If that would not come, you may still be dealing with that type of device, which was at the time this very cumbersome type of phone by which the key innovations was to have a QWERTY keyboards. Thanks God, smartphone came and changed everything. It changed first the way you and I, we interface with the machine. The human-machine interface was revolutionized once for all. So much that while you were used to write, eventually you learn about how to key at the time of the computers. Now you basically unlock, swipe to zoom, and essentially you use the metaphor of the swiping all in the place. So much that your kids, your babies, right, are able at the age of 2 or 3 or 4 to consume, to watch, and sometimes it makes you actually nervous in a completely different way, much earlier than you and I, the gray hair, were able to do. So that was the first revolutions. But parallel to that, another amazing revolution was related to the apps economy. Remember, Apple was close to a near-death experience because at the opposite of Microsoft, they didn't open the platform. In 1998, Apple was essentially in fallita, bankrupt. But learning from the lessons, the minute the iPhone came, the idea was to open that to any developers. That was a massive change because in Ferrara and other places, you could now essentially develop products. The industry of the apps today is bigger than the gaming industry together with the boxing industry, box office industry, the movies. The industry has also been creating in excess of 3.3 million jobs. In Como here, I'm sure you will find several hundreds, if not thousands, of developers. Now, the most important learnings is that a third of your time is actually spent on the apps, at the cost of the TV, the newspaper, the radio, and even at the cost of the web and the internet. A third of your time. So much that just a few years back, Wire magazines could actually put in front cover the fact that the web is dead. Maybe they were there a little bit too early, but there is something definitely true about it. So true that the next key feature, which was essentially brought to us by the iPhone, was the concept of always-on connectivity, instant on and always on. What it means that basically wherever you are, you can get access through the notifications about breaking news. That's sometimes intrusive. It's actually difficult to live. But there's also a beauty to it when you're able to have on Facebook what is called the safety check, by which you are told that there is an earthquake in central Italy. Or when my young boy Charles, which is in New York, tell me within a few seconds while there is a terrorist attack in New York that he's safe. So there is a beautiful stuff about the ability to have these notifications. But there is also something fundamentally different about the always-on connectivity. You can now be in the bus, on a boat on the lake, in the train, and you can consume whatever you want, a video. You can go on Netflix and watch a movie. You can, at the minute, get on the internet and do ecommerce by buying merchandising. So your way to interact with the machine, your way to interact with information and data has dramatically changed. So the what if here takes all of his full meanings. And last but not least, the always on has been also offering something very unique, a complete new economy, the on-demand economy. You can now be in the street and hail a taxi through Uber or through Via. You can essentially ask delivery at your place, ordering a good pasta plate within a minute going to be into your place. You can also access an whole array of new services, which is dramatically different and ease your life. So you see, from a piece of hardware with a unique human interface, a full array of services has been enabled. But that's not enough. It's not only in the area of economy that the smartphone has been kind of impacting our life. It also changed in many respects our culture. That's the infamous selfie culture, something that many of you will hate possibly, but is a fact of life. And why is that? Because at some point of time we put a camera in the front, enabling a very cool device called the FaceTime. Now, better to talk to my son, Paul, which is somewhere in Europe, I will be able to essentially see him, interact. And the relationship I will have with him will be in a dramatically different one. So I believe this is one more time something extremely positive. So much positive that all the political icons and even the Pope, Francis, cannot basically not access to the selfie culture and be part of it. That's where the world is going. And you have today, you need just to imagine what we talk about here. In just 10 years, you got in excess of 300 million people on Snapchat, which are monthly active users. You've got 800 people which are publishing every month in active manners medias. You've got 1.3 billion people which are using WhatsApp. And God knows WhatsApp is cool. WhatsApp allows you to basically create groups, interface, exchange, curate, have a completely different way of looking at that. Scaring maybe, but that's the fact, and we need to live with it. Now, once I say that, once you basically develop so much photos, so much videos, so much media assets, the question of the privacy becomes extremely relevant. And that's where, one more time, deep core technology has been brought to the masses, because that's really what the people like the GAFAs, right? The Google, Apple, Amazon's, Facebook, Microsoft are doing. They bring technology to the masses. And here we use some of the technology related to the biometrics. The fingerprint scanner, which was just 10 years ago, something exclusively relating to possibly military matters or high security ones, become part of your daily life by the launch of the Touch ID. Doing so, the Touch ID also is becoming part of your day-to-day life. How is that happening? Because the bank have been seeing, aside of the classical PIN codes, a new way to secure transactions. Up to 144 million people are using every day today the Touch ID as a way to interact and transact. But guess what? The Touch ID is already obsolete. Just been launched a few years back, and now what you are going to have in the iPhone 10 in a matter of few days, since just been launched, is the facial recognitions. The way we're going to basically relate to security is not anymore with basically a fingerprint, but essentially the ability to digitalize, pixelize your face and ensure that no one is similar to the other one. One more time, scaring, but that's what is happening. And this technology adjusts the start of another revolution which is coming around it, which you heard about this morning, which is the artificial intelligence. An amazing revolution. Because once more, talking of the acceleration of the time, talking about the exponential growth, all of what is now embedded into your smartphone was essentially totally reserved to a handful number of people just few years, few months, few days ago. On artificial intelligence, for example, you will be having anytime soon in your home, in the comfort of your home, a voice assistant. You may have heard of the name of the Amazon Alexa. Soon, the Apple Siri using the Apple Pod, the Google Now, the Microsoft Cortana, the Samsung S Voice. Essentially, a way to relate, not anymore by writing, not anymore by keying, not anymore by swiping on the screen, but by just talking, taking basically the full leverage of our five senses. That's really at the corner of the street and is going to invade your life. Not only the voice assistants are here, but in a matter of few more days, months, you will also have the computer vision. The autonomous car technology, which is not yet totally here, but which is going to become part of our life in the next 5 to 10 years, is going to invade our day-to-day life. This is coming from the autonomous car research, but it's also coming from the military research, which are now being brought to the vast public and to the masses. So you see, amazing technology related to artificial intelligence, but in fact, and I'm not a specialist, this is only the tip of the iceberg. All new language logos will become very familiar to your day-to-day life by using words like natural language processing, speech-to-speech translations. I will simply basically spell a word and I will get it automatically translated in the language of choice. Machine learning, cybersecurity. So an amazing acceleration of time and technology which is going to invade your life on a day-to-day basis. But there is also kind of a human touch to the smartphone, which really relates to the personal care. It allows you to basically better interact with your peers. It allows you to transact, to develop ecommerce, to be in communications. But now it's going to be also somehow quite intrusive in the way that by sensors, detector all around places, is going to tell you about how you need and how you're doing from a health point of view. You've got typically the ability to be active. They're going to challenge you to move. You may not realize here in Italy or in Europe, but some continents are dealing with obesity as a massive health policy issues. This is going to be partially addressing the issue. And another good one is a very simple example which illustrates the point about the opportunity ahead of us with a smartphone. Renata essentially was having a watch. That watch essentially told him that his heart was going up in a very abnormal way. He rushed to the hospital. He was detected a pulmonary embolism. Would he not have gone to the hospital, he would have been a dead person today. So you see that from this kind of ugly physical hardware being this piece of smartphone, there is also a very human touch that we can see and a whole range of new potentials to go after. So as a first conclusions, from what seems to be just a new iPod, Walkman of the 21st century, a new mobile phone, an internet communicator, in fact, 6, 7, 8, and maybe I could name much more, new technology came in. And that's really what is the 10 years looking back at the iPhone. The amazing ability to bring the core technology to the whole world. And this would not have been possible. Yesterday, when you wanted to basically participate, belongs to the Pope Francis nominations, you would have a handful number only of people on the Peter's Plaza. Today, by having this iPhone, smartphone, or this iPod, you can relate that to the word and make it and sharing with anyone else. But maybe what I can announce today already, and I'm certainly wrong, is that the iPhone is dead. That's not a true, real cover. But I sense already that soon you and I, or maybe 10 years from now, that will be the cover that you will see around the places. Why is that? Because the concentrations of power, of intelligence, of sensor that you got in an iPhone, maybe tomorrow just come into a pair of glasses, or better, in contact lenses. What if tomorrow all of these smartphone features will be essentially only being wear into your eyes and be able to relate through this voice assistant? Better than that, what if tomorrow your human body will include some of these devices, right? And actually really be part of something which is particular, making your human body full of technology. I know you are scaring now and scared, and you're right. Because if the challenge of the world is this exponential growth of technology, the climate change, there is maybe another challenge, which that we need to all remain human. And that's the third core challenge of this world. And why is that important? Because me, the son of a laguet, of Rinaldo Cagni, which was born here 100 years ago, I want to make sure that we'll always use, without the iPhone, my 5 senses to essentially enjoy the beautiful Lake Como. Thank you.